Come to order, please. I want to welcome everybody to the May 9th Board of County Commissioners meeting, regular scheduled meeting. 8th, whatever today is. I'm still foggy from the being cold, sick. Anyway, welcome. If you have any electronic devices, please silence them at this time. If you have to carry on an extended conversation, please take it to the lobby so it doesn't interrupt the rest of the meeting. Is Mr. Josh Paul here? There you are. If everybody will stand for the invocation and pledge, Mr. Josh Poole, Redeemer 38 Church.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Lord, for this afternoon and just the opportunity to come together. We recognize your control over all things, your loving control, and we honor you as our maker. I plead with you, Lord, that through this meeting that you would guide these officials, this board here that you yourself have appointed. Lead them, shape them, use them for your glory. Humble them, Lord, protect them, and give them patience as they so often have to discern through what is the best for our county. Thank you for them, Lord. As the summer is knocking on the door, as students are getting out of school and so many visitors are flooding into our county, I just pray for protection. That you protect locals here as well as those who are visiting and bring all people to yourself. Help us understand the truth about who Christ is and what he has done for us through the forgiveness of sins. In the name of Christ our Lord, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see, we got any constitutional officers in the room? Don't see any. All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From additions and deletions from the agenda, we would like to remove under Commissioner Chapman's name of the agenda the discussion of the utility authority. I think he will be prepared to address that at a later date. Under additions in the consent agenda is a request to approve the right-of-way easement with Chilco for Helen McCall Park. We're adding that under the consent agenda. Sorry.
It's good. You had it good.
There we go. We're green now. So under remove from the consent from the agenda is under Mr. Chairman's name for the discussion of the utility authority, and we will address that at a later date. Under addition is a request to approve right-of-way easement with Chelco for Helen McCall Park, and that you'll find that on the consent agenda. Chelco needs to get their lines in so they can begin using the concession stand as soon as possible. We just realized in the last day or two that Chelco was ready for that easement, so we're asking you to please look favorably upon that so we can get that facility up and moving. And I believe Ms. Noyes has one more.
Yes, I'd like to add under Commissioner Anderson's name a resolution regarding a traffic signal at Driftwood Road. I apologize. Commissioner Anderson got me everything in time. I just didn't have it ready for the agenda. But if we could add that under his name, and you all should have a copy.
Okay.
Motion to approve agenda with additions and deletions.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, this time it's public comment for anyone that wants to speak in reference to an agenda item. Agenda item only. This is time for public comment. If you're not going to be able to hang till the item comes up, this would be your opportunity to come forward. Yes, sir.
I don't have an agenda item, but am I allowed to get 3 minutes?
For what?
I just wanted to share some information with the commissioners.
Well, there's another opportunity. This here's for agenda items only. Seeing none? Is there any items to be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Let's see. Mr. Jones, I think you're up.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, we need to approve the waste management consent agenda with your recusal.
Okay, we have Waste Management EAL, and I have acknowledged my conflict of interest and filed the proper form with the clerk on item number 2618-0664, and we'll have a second item 18-0707, which I've also filed a conflict of interest with the clerk, and will not vote on either one of those things. So the first one up is an approval for the Waste Management EAL.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second one is a request to approve and authorize the chair to sign the first renewal of the collection and purchase of recyclables and salvageable material, contract number 016015 with Waste Management.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under admin, it's going to be a lengthy discussion on one item, but I don't think it's going to be lengthy either. We have a request, and there's a letter in your packet from Mayor Terry Hawley from the city of Florella. They have an event on May 31st of this year over and on Lake Jackson. They have requested that we close the boat ramp on the Florida side for that day. It is a military exercise. I believe he indicated there would be some parachuting and some other things, but it was to be a day to honor the military, and they will do a lot of things around the lake. So he asked that we would close that ramp to make it safe for those that participate and come to watch those activities. If we do indeed choose to do that, I would suggest we put a off-duty deputy there to ensure that the barricades that we put up remain in place and the boat ramp is not used during that time for, again, the safety and visibility of those there to enjoy that event.
I'll make the motion and include that as well.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all we have, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Tusa.
I think we're setting records here for speed. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I have a few items, so let's just get right to it. So, item 28, request to reject bids received for ITB 018008, Regional Beach Access Group 1 and Neighborhood Beach Access Group 1 renovation project, and to re-advertise. This was something that we bid out back in January, and we feel that based on the timeline that we had presented, that the quotes were a little bit high, and actually now that season is upon us, we felt that it would be prudent to delay this until the fall. So we are asking to reject these bids, and then we will rebid it in the fall.
Okay. It's board's wishes.
Make
How
a
long
motion
does
to
it take?
approve.
Motion
I'm
to
sorry.
approve. Go ahead.
How long does it take once a bid is out? I mean, shouldn't we get started soon so that the minute the Labor Day is here, we're starting construction so that we don't go through this again?
I think we'll
Or is there a
probably,
time criteria?
We should have sufficient time to rebid the project and have that ready to go.
yeah,
Scope and all the work's already been done.
Right.
yeah, that's
It would
already
just be
been,
advertising and
Right.
accepting the bids. We should be able to handle that before Labor Day.
Okay. We have a motion.
So moved.
Oh, he's,
Oh,
Second.
any second? Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
okay, the next item, number 29, update on Highway 331 properties. So just real quick on the contracts, those are not ready to be brought back before you. The last meeting, you had directed myself and Larry to work on contracts, and then also contacting the Air Force to get some information on them on a possible purchase or land swap for that transmitter site adjacent to the annex here. And so Larry made contact with the Air Force, and the information that we received back from them was that they would not be interested in selling the property, but they would perhaps be interested in doing a land swap, and it would be value to value. So that's, anything else more, Larry?
We had, there's several email exchanges you have in your binder, and we had some phone conversation as well with Melinda Hazard, with Kelly Shuward and Glenn Wagner regarding the tower site, the issue that they weren't interested in selling it, that there was an email that was mentioned at the previous meeting regarding tearing the tower down. They didn't have the funds to do it. The information that I got via conversation with Ms. Hazard was shortly after that email was sent, they were notified of correction that they didn't intend to tear it down. That even today, there was some interest from Tyndall, if the folks here saw no longer use for it, but they were not there. So we did have the email exchange you see in your book with Mr. Wagner regarding the possibility of a swap. You'll see there that he says in his 10 years, he's never done one, that he would anticipate it taking a year or longer perhaps, but I think he mentions a year. Once we've identified a parcel, we would like for them to consider a swap. And as you can see from there, there is a list of things that would be required to do this. So it's a lengthy process. They're open to looking at a parcel if we had, or if we know of a parcel or wish to pursue a parcel, to ask them to consider an exchange. My last conversation with Kelly, and I won't try to butcher her last name again, and I'm waiting for an email from her, was that the likelihood of the mission folks who use the tower, as opposed to the real estate folks who make sure the real estate is there to use the tower, that the likelihood of the mission folks wanting to take it down or do something else with it was probably not very high. She was going to do some checking and ask some questions. So we're anticipating hearing back from them in fairly short order. But I can assure you, we did contact them in a timely manner based on your direction. We had early conversations over the phone, particularly with Melinda Hazard, who works in the real estate area of the base and managing the real property. And she referred me to Glenn Wagner, and should be an email there where she copied Mr. Wagner on her email to me for him to contact me when they had information. He was doing some research, and what you see there is a result of that research. So in a nutshell, what I've been able to gather is there is a process. They're not interested in selling it. It would be strictly a value for value trade. It would be an assessed value, an appraised value for appraised value. And it's a fairly lengthy process. He says a year, but again, he also says in his 10 years at Eglin, he's never done one, so he's was speculating on that time frame.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I have dealt with Eglin on property before, and I can assure you a year is laughable. They don't give it up easy. They don't want to. They don't have to. And I actually finally gave up. I was trying to get a park for Walton County at the south on the bay, and I finally just gave up because they just, well, they told me about bomblets for one thing, but that's a whole other story. But if we're going to have to buy a piece of property to put this on, buy it for them so they can move it, I don't see, why don't we just go ahead and buy the property that we can get a hold of now? But that's what I say. I have dealt with them on property before.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, did I hear you say that you had a phone call that said they did not want to tear it down?
That was yes, sir.
That Tyndall wanted to use it?
That Tyndall had some interest in it, but the email that was sent 2011 or 13, whatever it was, that said that they wanted to tear it down, but they didn't have the money at the time.
Mm-hmm.
When I spoke further, I believe it was with Ms. Hazard that indicated that was pulled back from the mission folks who had to make that decision, that it was not the real property area of Eglin that would make that decision, that they weren't intending to tear it down, but that Tyndall had expressed some interest in it if that was a possibility.
Okay. Any other questions? Any public comment? I can't see. No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim Bagby, BAGBY. I would say we've got a lot of conjecture, no offense, but the county has a long history of supporting the military mission of Eglin, okay? And the mission, one of the mission folks talked to you at your last meeting and told you, you know, that tower, they can put what they need to put on any tower on Eglin for them to communicate with their folks. Everybody knows that this is the missing piece in the government center, and it would be just a coup to get this. I would ask that you at least get an appraised value for that parcel, because I would think that the appraised value, right now the appraised value is probably not too high because you can't use it for anything because of the antenna. So that would make sense. And then you can see what type of swap. And I agree, it might be a long process, but I think we have two advantages that a lot of other folks don't have. We have a congressional delegation that could probably help us put a little pressure on the Department of Defense. And we also have the Florida Defense Alliance chair, Kelly Jo Kilberg, lives here. And she, if you're not familiar with what they do, they actually work with Enterprise Florida and the state of Florida to get money to buy these to protect the bases from encroachment. So, and that is a big push. I've heard the governor speak twice on it in the last 12 months because they're afraid that another round of BRAC is coming, and they're doing everything they can to protect the military bases that the state of Florida has. So I would just ask, it doesn't hurt you to ask for an appraisal, to see what how much you would have to buy. The county has a lot of parcels that are not too far from the Eglin Reservation that it could swap. So it's not like you have to go out and buy. You know, by the way, you could protect a lot of encroachment for just the little cost around the Eglin thing. So I would just ask, I'm not sure why there's such a rush to take property off the private property tax rolls, but that parcel, everybody, I mean, I've known for 10, 15 years, that's where the TDC ought to be, if they could have ever gotten rid of that. It should have never been where it was, and I understand it was put there because it was at a major intersection and it was a 2-lane road. So I would just ask you to get an appraisal of the parcel next door. It's far larger than what you're looking at. It's usable, okay, when you combine it with where your trailers were. So I would just ask you to think long-term, think of protecting Eglin, and think of doing what's right for this county. Thank you.
Anyone
Mr. Chairman, could I say something else? And Mr. Bagley may be right. Well, maybe we should look into trying to get that piece of property. But it seems to me that we need to get this building built in a timely manner. We need to, the TDC is about to bust at their seams now. And could we go ahead and, start and then try to get that parcel for future use later on down the road, because we will be expanding. I mean, this is,
Okay. Mr. Osborne?
The D3 property abuts Eglin that we own. The District 3, that on the south side?
For the record, Alan Osborne, I agree that the process will probably, I agree with Mr. Commander, it'll take more than a year. But, because that's just the way the government works. But I'll also say this, if you've talked to a bunch of civilians aren't in charge of the final decisions. So you've not even made it far enough up the chain, because the mission commanders will decide whether something is mission critical or not. The facts are, we do know this, there is no ground mission for that parcel. The building has not been used for years. I've been inside the gate and been in there. There's nothing in there. The building is decrepit, has no value basically. It was built in the 50s, best I can tell. But the mission of the tower is going to be relaying stuff. And you have communication and Motorola towers that the sheriffs use, so I think that could be worked around. And you absolutely don't have to purchase a parcel of land. You have two advantages to this parcel that work in your favor and the government's favor. One, the government does not care a hoot if everybody can see what they're doing from 331, and the TDC does care if they have frontage on 331. So they might be, if you offer them a mission option to relocate the antennas that are on the tower, and you offer them a bigger piece of parcel somewhere that doesn't have what you want, that you already own, like a piece that's kind of off, that's not somewhere where you would put one of your county support facilities that nobody needs to see and you want out of the way, you might, and it offers them a chance to use that as a ground mission place too, where nobody sees them. You've got to sell them on giving them something that they don't have with that parcel. Only thing they get out of that parcel is access and the tower, because the people who service the tower can go right off the road. But as far as visibility, the military doesn't care if the tourists can see them, and probably would prefer them not to see what they're doing out there messing with antennas and stuff easily. So I think you have a good sale, and it would allow you to maximize your other property. You've got to pitch it to them, but until you've got far enough up to the chain of command, that's almost like said you ask the staff, and the staff can advise you, but until you ask the BCC to vote on it, you haven't really run it up the flagpole, so to speak. You just asked the staff, and they gave you an opinion. Until you put in the formal request, until you put some effort in the proposal of what land you have that they could use, then you don't know if you've got a real proposal. Other than that, you really haven't investigated it. And my argument to you, the TDC may be busting at the seams, so are dirt roads in South Walton. We still got some. It's not killing us. And we can use that TDC right now, and you can swap a piece of land that you have no use for a crown jewel right on 331. Not many opportunities for that, so you better consider it.
All right, anyone else? Seeing none, what's the board's wishes?
It's just an
Just an
update, which
update.
there's,
Yeah, just an update.
Just an update.
Yeah, it's just an update, so I'll bring back the contract, but, I mean, if you want to give Larry or myself any further direction.
Well, Larry, I
certainly.
think you still are in contact with them, aren't you?
Yes, sir, we're still waiting for some
And I
follow-up
still think
email.
we should, if we do not use it for the TDC, I'm sorry. I think we do need to investigate perhaps getting that piece so that we will have, a whole parcel there. I think it would be useful, but it's the timeline and, and how long it's going to take, because I don't know you're in a time crunch, you're certainly in a squish crunch.
I just, the properties that are available to us a little bit further to the north, how long are they going to be available to us? So if we miss that opportunity, will we get that opportunity again? That's just something we need to think about as we move forward through this process.
Yeah. But I would like you to continue to work with them and see if we could get it.
And even find another parcel that we could interest them
Yeah.
in as well as formalizing
That's
the
what I'm-
paperwork.
that's what I'm thinking is the District 3 that we're deep, the offices on the south side, I'm pretty sure that is part of Eglin. I mean, that is, like I said, that's a prime place for a TDC office, or this is.
All right, I think you got your direction,
Okay.
Larry and Jay. All right,
Let me ask for a little more clarity. Do we want to make an offer if the D3 property is adjacent to Eglin? Do we want to move forward with saying, would you consider this property?
What I would like for you to do is go back and look at that property, see how much it is, how much property we have.
Yes, sir.
Make sure it abuts to Eglin, and bring that back at the next board meeting.
Yeah, I'm sure, hey, Eglin is my district, so I'm sure we have property, but is it at the south end? Is it where they need a tower to be, would be also be my question.
Right. And there might be more parcels, so, even if you bring us back 3 parcels to look at, that would be great. Thank you.
all right, Jay.
Let's see, next agenda item, number 30, update on county welcome signs. So after the last meeting, I received a little direction back from the board on what y'all would like to see. So we have just basically 3 variations. This first one is tan with black, just kind of bold, welcome to Walton County. This is that same version, but in a brown type. The next one is a little bit different. Oh, sorry, there was white, just if we wanted to have it reversed out. And then this one is the white version with the tagline at the bottom where the Highlands meet the Gulf. And then the last one is the brown, which is kind of the colors we currently have, but obviously just changing up the logo and the Gateway to Paradise message. So that's kind of where we are. At the pre-BCC meeting last week, we talked a little bit about these signs, and it was brought up about reflective lettering or the signs themselves being reflective. So in the original quote that we had, that was for reflective lettering. We went back to the vendor and we got an updated price for the whole sign being reflective, and it actually is cheaper, which is kind of odd. You think for more, it would cost you more, but it actually is less. So we were originally looking at $25,000, $24,300 for all the signs, and now we're looking at $22,300. So it's a $2,000 decrease if the whole sign is reflective. So I think actually since it's cheaper and probably better as people are driving down the road with non-illuminated signs, that we go with the full reflective sign. So now it's just a question of, what do we want?
Well, why don't we kind of put this thing to bed? We've been talking about it for weeks, and I think there's 5 options you've presented. We can take a vote on which one you think, and I'll lead out option A3. It's the light brown. It sort of coincides with the rest of the colors that we have along here at the annex. White lettering, and of course, I look at it as it's simplistic. It doesn't have a lot of verbiage on it, and at 60 miles an hour, you probably couldn't read a lot of this stuff, like where the Highlands meet the Gulf. And so it's enlarged the signs. It's got white on the brown and the reflective stuff. So that's my option. So I'll leave it up to everybody else.
I like option A1. I like the simplicity, simple, but I like the black lettering.
All right,
I like the black lettering.
Ms. Nipper.
I'll go last. I'm chicken. Because I'm the one who brought this up.
I'll go after Ms. Nipper.
Go ahead.
I'll go, I like A1. A1 would be my first choice, A3 would be my second choice. I could live with either one of
I
them.
will tell you something that was mentioned to us, and I think Jay mentioned,
Yeah.
been there, that white letters will show better at night. Is that not what?
Well, with the whole sign being reflective, the whole sign will show up.
Okay.
So, and that was my concern. We were looking at pricing, was that could be more expensive, but it's actually cheaper. So I think that's the way we should go. Yeah.
All right, Tony.
I think that we need to keep it real simple. Welcome to Walden County, established 1824 would be plenty. And to be honest, I don't really care.
You gotta vote, come on, come on.
Well, I like the black and white, but I'm not married to it, whatever the Lord's wishes are. But I do think if we put too much stuff on it, you're not gonna be able to read it anyway, because on the one over here, we got Gateway to Paradise, but you can't even hardly see the established 1824. So let's keep it simple, and
So you probably like A1 the best, is what you're saying, right?
I'm fine with it. Honest with you.
A1 or A3?
I think we have stomped all over this, and let's get it out of the way.
All right, Ms. Nipper, you're up.
Where are we at?
No, A1 or A3?
A1.
A1.
Yay.
So
Darker
A1,
one.
Yeah. Do you need a motion for that?
I would need a motion for that. And
Make the motion that we go with option A1, welcome to Walton County, established 1824, reflective sign.
I'll second.
There we go.
A motion and a second. Any public comment? Oh, hands going up everywhere. All right, you're first, sir.
I did a lot of polling. Forgot my name. It's Stephen McBroom, STEPHEN MCBROOM. I did a lot of polling over the past couple of weeks of some of the historical societies in Walton County. At the and my family, friends, a lot of emails, a lot of verbiage. But anyway, everybody likes option B. I'm like y'all, I like the simple, but the majority of the people in the north end, they do like option B. And as we talk about this and we talk about putting it up, over at Paxton, numerous times, people have been parked over there on the side, getting pictures took of the welcome and stuff. So whichever one we go through, we ought to think about, making a little, safe space for them because there's not really a good place to pull off, especially if you have two vehicles. And we know summer's coming, and there's been a lot of people there.
Well, I understand what you're talking about, but that's a state road.
Yeah.
And trying to work through them to get a pull-off or whatever, I'm not sure how difficult that's
Oh,
going to be.
okay.
Even move it towards where the sheriff, move it just slightly north is what, matter of fact, Ms. Cecilia and I have both asked Chance Powell about that.
Okay.
It's
maybe-
a safety issue.
Maybe we can consider that.
Very well.
And thank y'all for acting on this.
All right. Did I see another hand? Bob Brook.
Bob Brook, B-R-O-O-K-E. 2 questions, Mr. Chairman. How many signs are planned for purchase, and where will they be located?
We won't be purchasing any signs. All we're doing is a reskinning using like a decal that will overlay on top of it.
On signs that are already there?
Already
Thank
at
you.
the entry points. Jim,
Jim Baby's got his hand up.
I got him.
No, Jim Bagby, B-A-G-B-Y. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I think it's a great idea to do this. The only issue I have is the TDC shouldn't be paying for it. If you remember when these signs were the big blue signs, the TDC paid for them because they were visit southwalton.com, welcome to the beaches of South Walton, and it was a valid use of the promotional dollars for those signs, just to say, welcome to Walton County, which is out, most of it is outside the taxing district, the TDT district. I agree you should do the signs. This just should be a public works funded project. So I would ask that you relook where the monies are coming from. Thank you.
Ms. Bowman.
Goy Bowman, this is a waste of money because in about a decade from now, all of the signs are going to say, welcome to Choctawhatchee Key. This is Santa Rosa Beach. The mailing address is Santa Rosa Beach, so the sign should say, welcome to Santa Rosa Beach. It's not Walton County. So you're wasting your money, you're wasting the taxpayers' money, and you're wasting everybody's time. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Is that something we do need to look at as far as TDC, the statute funding?
Commissioner Hooper, that is something I can look into. We can research that and see if that's an issue, and then if it is, we can bring it back to you and see if you want to pay for it out of general revenue or.
Or you could include that in a motion, that if she finds that TDC funds not appropriate, that we would fund it out of.
And how much exactly is the funding, Jay, remind me?
22,300.
23 something.
I'm not looking at it. How much?
22,000.
22,000,
300.
hold on one second, I got
I
it.
will include that in my motion.
I'll modify my second.
Give you the exact number. It was $22,372.35.
Okay. So you modified your motion to include that if it
I think
doesn't.
Wilmer and Buddy are in the back having apoplexy, but yeah, so I just modified my motion.
They'll get over it. You modified your second?
Yes.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
So just for clarity, we're going to move this process forward. If legal finds that it's appropriate for TDC funds to pay for it, that will happen. If not, it will come out of Public Works or some reserve, some contingency fund.
And it's option A1.
Option.
Got it. All right, great. Thank you very much. Number 31, update and request direction on advisory committees. So I guess maybe a couple meetings ago, we were talking about the advisory committees, and there were some concerns from the TDC standpoint on quorums and making sure that we had quorums. And so the board directed me to get with Ms. Noyes. Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we voted. We talked about it, but I don't think we voted.
Oh, on the signs?
Yeah, didn't we?
Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I thought we did that.
I did too.
Never mind.
We get so bogged down till, you know.
Well, it's approved twice then. So anyway, we were talking about the advisory committees, and just in the, to try to meet the challenges of quorums, we reduced the number on the advisory committees. And so in the course of the board meeting, we discussed seeing if we can reduce that number that was required for a quorum, and Ms. Noyes has determined that we can. And so then we would put the committees back to 9 members, and we would only need 4 as a quorum. And so based on that, we would like to see what direction the board would like to take on whether y'all would like to vote on it yourself, or if you'd like the council to decide. It could go all the way down to the committee level, but I would rather it stay with either yourselves or the council. So that's what I would offer to you.
Well, board?
If the council votes, do we still have to approve it?
You would still have to approve of members.
But Jay, I guess, is asking whether or not you would like to vote on what the quorum requirements would be
Right.
for these voluntary committees.
If you want to make that decision, or if you want to leave it to the council.
Well, I brought this up to Jay because on the TPO, we had to change the number that met the quorum because we couldn't get a lot of people there at different times. So we had to reduce it just to get 4 out of 16. So we'd have something where we can get things accomplished.
And I do think, and Larry just pointed this out, since you are the ones that establish the committees and nominate the members, it probably would be appropriate for you to set the quorum requirements, if you so
Okay,
choose.
so we can go ahead and set the quorum requirements now with a motion.
I make a motion, we set quorum requirements for TDC committees at 4.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none?
Ask one question. Should that motion include the committees that are made up of 9? I don't know if you have any that are less than that.
Well, they were originally 9, and we just reduced them to 7. So we would just put them all back to 9, and the quorum would be 4 for those committees.
Okay, but just to be clear, you're expecting 9 members committees with 4 members.
Correct. We probably should specify that.
Yeah, I just think that needs to be clear in the
Yeah.
motion.
That's added.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Osborne?
For the record, Alan Osborne, if you're still trying to accomplish the stop of the gridlock of not having a vote, why don't you make the quorum 5 out of 9? So at least if you have 5, you won't have a tie vote. You won't have the 2-to-2 problem that you always have sometimes. So if you're going to have 9, why not have 5? That way, when you have 5 people, you can still have a vote that's not tied 2-to-2.
That's a good
I
point.
think currently 5 is the quorum, right, Jay?
5 is the
Right.
quorum, and that's the dilemma.
That's,
So-
you can't get 5 most of the time.
Yeah. That's the challenge.
Yeah. Why don't we try 4 and see if it works? If not, you can always bring it back to us. But
And these are advisory committees, so I mean, the final action is either by the TDC council or ultimately you. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's a huge problem if there are a lot of tie votes, since they aren't the final decision makers on most
You know,
things.
I say maybe we try it for a little while, and we'll see if there's issues with it, then I can bring it back to you, and we can change our course of action.
yeah,
Okay.
these are volunteers and they're not paid anything, and if they have a headache or have something to do with their grandkids,
Yeah.
you know, so we're lucky to get people to even volunteer.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Give it a shot, Jay. Let's
Okay,
see how-
we'll try it out, and like I said, if we have any issues, we'll bring it back to you. Let's see, real quick, just under updates, wanted to give you an update on TDT numbers for March. We were up 24.73% year over year. The number for March was 2,261,800, and last year, just FYI, was 1,813,178. So had an increase of over 400,000. Year-to-date, we're up 14.13%. So we had a very good spring break, and from what I've heard from our bed tax collectors, it looks like we're going to have a good summer. So excited to relay that information to you. Real quick under updates, just wanted to let you know that it is Tourism Week, and we have our annual update that we have presented to you, and we have some copies in the lobby. So if anybody would like a copy, feel free to pick one up on your way out. Great information talking about TDC and everything that we do. We'll also be mailing these out to homes. We feel it's really important that we get this information out so people have an understanding of what the TDC does and what we're all about. And I have Philip Downs with Downs and St. Germain, our research firm. He's going to give you a quick update on economic impact for last year, Should only take about 5 minutes, so unless you have any questions for me, I'll turn it over to Philip.
Jay, was speaking with you regarding the background check for vendors. I think last year hasn't been addressed, so just wondering.
That is something that we talked about in a board meeting, I guess, several months ago at this point.
Last year.
Yeah, is it all right?
I think it's already been last year, or the end of last season.
And so we were speaking about this, and so I'd like some direction from the board on if you would like the TDC or admin or legal to look into some policies regarding vendors and some type of a process for background checks.
Very much so.
And I would just say, this would be something, if we have board directions to look into it, it's something that we couldn't really implement this year with vendors who've already received their license for the year. But on a go-forward basis, if the board directs us to do so, but it's not something we could make that change right now.
If the board wants to move forward and ask staff to look into it, okay. I have some misgivings on it as far as government trying to tell what a private entity can or can't do as far as hiring or firing or whatever the case may be. So we can look into it. We can take it from there.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is it, if we look into it for the beach vendors, won't we have to look into it for all our vendors? The guys that we buy office supplies from, I mean, the whole thing, so, I mean.
That's something definitely that we would need to take into account and,
But do we do it now? Do we do a
background
background check on
checks?
our vendors prior?
no, ma'am, I don't believe that we do. I mean, I think that we have regulations on, anti-discrimination policies, whistleblower protections, things that were required by statute to have for our vendors, but I do not believe we do criminal background checks, no.
All right, let's look into it, because on the employee handbook, it says employees, vendors, it says a couple of other things are in our employee handbook, and the suggestion is to try to put our best foot forward. It's not just to make sure we've got vendors out there that are doing the right thing.
Okay.
All right?
I think we got direction for staff, so we'll go from there.
Doesn't hurt to look.
No. All right.
And so anyway, if Philip can just come and just kind of present you with some economic impact numbers for a few minutes?
5 minutes?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rick, give him 5.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Philip Downs with Downs and St. Germain Research, and I'll be sharing with you today the economic impact figures from tourism in calendar year 2017. And we put these figures together based on interviews with over 3,600 visitors during calendar year 2017. And we put them together, of course, to document and to inspire, to help the marketing of the TDC, but also to communicate in forums such as this. So here's the big number, 4.4 billion with a B, economic impact of visitors to Walton County in calendar year 2017. And that economic impact comes from direct spending by visitors of nearly $3 billion. And then we have a multiplier on that. And the multiplier basically deals with people who work in establishments that serve our visitors, spend their wages in this community, businesses that serve our visitors, buy products and services from other businesses in the community, and so that translates to a multiplier effect, which takes the spending up to $4.4 billion in economic impact. That $4.4 billion in economic impact emanates from just over 4 million visitors. This number includes those who stay in paid accommodations, plus people who stay with friends and relatives, plus day trippers, people who come here just to visit the beach or to eat or to shop and then go back home. And here's where they come from. 7 out of 10 of our visitors come from the Southeast. We have nearly 1 out of 5 coming from the Midwest. And then just over 3% coming from out of the country. Most of those are Canadians. Here's a closer look at origin markets. Atlanta has been and remains and will remain for the foreseeable future as the #1 origin market for visitors to Walton County. The Dallas-Fort Worth area is a growing market for us. And if you look down below, you see Houston. Houston and Dallas are growth markets for us. Nashville is a growth market, currently at 5%. Our typical visitor is a little more female than male and lives in a household with an average income of over $217,000. So we are attracting an upscale visitor. 6 out of 10 of them bring their children, and most of them drive, as you might know. And they stay about 6 nights, and they come in average travel party sizes of about 5. And 1 out of 5 of our visitors in 2017 was here for the first time. They come for family vacations, they come to relax, they stay in our many fine rental properties, and they plan these vacations for months. We were just out in Dallas doing some focus groups, and these people think 4 to 6 to 8 months ahead of time before they pack up the SUV and bring their children to Walton County. They have a great experience here. 95% will return, and 1 out of 3 have been here over 10 times. You can see the increase in visitation over time. And each visitor brings nearly $1,100 into the community. And that translates to 21,900 jobs, $630 million in wages. So every time 184 people come over the bridge on 331, they bring 1 job into Walton County. And your TDT is over 23 million. That places you 10th in the state. You're the 41st state in terms of population. You're 10th in terms of TDT collections. This is a rather busy slide, but the right column shows that we're increasing in all of our key metrics. And that's how they spend their money, primarily on accommodations, restaurants, and shopping. That's a further breakdown if we go to the next slide. So most of our money coming in from visitors are those people staying in paid accommodations. And this is an interesting slide. 3/4 of the money spent in our stores in Walton County is spent by visitors. And every dollar the VSW spends, Visit South Walton spends on marketing, translates to $323 in spending. And this pertains directly to you folks. Visitors generate $99 million in revenue that goes into your budget. On the other hand, they cost you about $66 million in servicing their needs in terms of infrastructure and services. So there's a net benefit of $33 million to county government. Are there questions?
Any questions? No, sir, I don't guess so, but very nice.
One curious question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that the average, I believe the average income of the family was $217,000, and that was, you consider that an upscale clientele? At what point do you consider it upscale?
Well, that's a subjective term.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question, sir. You're talking about the upscale visitor that we bring here and what we are trying to do. We had a discussion earlier on beach vending and that sort of thing. And I guess I want to ask you from your perspective, how important is it that we try to keep our beaches as pristine and, well, not a whole lot of stuff on it? How important is that?
And sign clutter.
And sign clutter, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
It is your product. It's a key part of your product. I mentioned being out in Dallas a few weeks ago, and the intent was not to discuss the cleanliness of the beach, but that did come up, and it was a differentiating factor for Walton County vis-a-vis, say, Amelia Island or Naples or the Outer Banks or other fine destinations.
So you say they do a better job than us, or,
No,
when you say a discussion, well, what was the discussion about?
Well, there are 2 pieces of evidence here. One, the focus groups where people were talking about how clean our beaches were.
Okay.
And the other is the 95% who say they'll come back. That's a very high satisfaction rating.
That was my part of the push for the background check. This is our bumper crop.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Is that all you got, Jay? All right.
Okay.
Ms. Sid?
Yes, sir. Commissioners, item number 33 is a request to review the litigation matrix and ratify the actions of the Office of the County Attorney.
Board's wishes.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 3 is a request to approve and authorize the chair to sign the mediation settlement agreement in Forehand versus Walton County, case number 2012 CA 750. We held a mediation in this case on April the 4th, and this is the settlement agreement. You should have it in your package. We do have insurance coverage on this case, so the only responsibility we will have is our $10,000 deductible.
It was a long day, I can tell you.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, item number 35, I'm sorry, do you need to take a break?
So go ahead.
Okay. Item number 35 is a request to approve and authorize the chair to sign the contract with Environmental Research and Design Incorporated to complete the study of stormwater in the Driftwood neighborhood. After the last direction from the board, we went back to Dr. Harper and received a proposal for him just to complete the original scope of services on the contract that we entered into in 2015. He provided us with that proposal. It's for, I believe, it was $22,000 or $23,000. It's in your packet. But he removed the survey work that was at issue that he added to the original scope of services.
I still believe that the survey work needs to be done.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, is there any public comment? Mr. Heath?
And then we need to wait for Sarah to get back.
Mr. Osborne, you're next.
Yeah, you need to wait for Sarah to get
We're going to halt just a minute and let Sarah get back in the room.
Thank you. Sean Heath, 4. While we're waiting on Commissioner Commander, there are a couple of things I do want to distribute and just have for the record. First is a letter from me that goes into some depth of the issues I'm going to raise. Obviously, I won't have time to talk about all that today. So there's copies.
And Commissioners, Mr. Heath, if this is the letter I got this morning.
Yes, I sent it earlier.
Right, and
That's
I
correct.
forwarded it to each of you this morning.
And then I don't have copies of all of this. It's an email concerning the issue from the Dr. Harper, and I just put it in for the record. I am going to read or refer to some excerpts from it. It's an April 9th, 2018 email.
When an attorney is in front of us, how do we determine that some get 3 minutes and others get to be here longer? Is that quasi-judicial?
Oh,
Say quasi.
Right, on quasi-judicial items, there's not a time limit.
Time limit.
While we're waiting on her, could I go on with what I have under my name? To save some time? Chairman, would that be okay? Never mind, never mind.
Never mind, she's back. Mr. Heath?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chapman. As you know, my name is Sean Heath. I represent the Greater Driftwood Homeowners Association, who are the people most affected by the decision in front of you on this hiring of Dr. Harper and the scope of his services. The issue, as we've talked about before, is basically a $17,000 issue. Whether or not the board is going to approve, as part of his work, survey information to be obtained, which he has proposed, or not. The proposal that's been put in front of you is to exclude the survey information. I think that's an error. The county can have the survey information done at no additional cost to the county. I'll get to that in a moment. But the issue was raised as to whether or not this
survey work is an addition to his original scope. And it's not. His original scope says, these work efforts, meaning his contract, are based largely on information provided by others, which will include, at a minimum, as-built construction drawings for the portions of Driftwood Estates, including information on inverts, pipe sizes, and lengths. And it goes on to say some other information. That as-built information was not available to him. It does not exist. So in order for him to execute what he's required to do under the contract, or required to do under the under the special magistrate's report for the independent engineering analysis, he has to have the survey information. He says it clearly in the letter that I've provided, the email of April 9th. He writes, our original proposal basically was based on the assumption that the information necessary to complete our proposed work efforts was available in the existing documents. However, when we finally received the hydrological model from the county, and he's referring to a model conducted in 2008 by the county, we discovered the modeling for the exterior area was conducted in a basic manner and lacked the site-specific information needed to develop a legally defensible model to evaluate the flooding issues. The existing county model assumes standard cross-sections for all other areas, when the reality is that the exterior is not constructed to any design standard. At the bottom of his email, he notes that the board may vote to deny the supplemental survey information. And he writes, I believe that this would be a mistake, and the resulting work product would not satisfy the order from the special magistrate for independent modeling of the two systems. So, he's identified in this that he can't meet the requirements of the contract or the independent engineering report without the survey information. Now, the county has allocated, just a second, over $400,000 to spend in this fiscal year for Driftwood. Simply take some of those funds that have already been allocated and use them for the survey information. By getting the survey information, the county engineer identified last time we were here that the county projects to spend over $2 million over the next few years in Driftwood for these improvements. By spending $17,000 now, you will know whether or not the $2 million that you're going to spend will in fact work.
Okay.
Subject to your questions.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none. All right. Thank you, Mr. Heath. Alan?
For the record, Alan Osborne, I just don't understand this, especially you, Chairman. You and I said we wanted to settle something, and we did, and it's over. You said you complete it, and that's what you wanted, and that's what I wanted. We wanted an independent survey, and you asked me, was that going to satisfy you, Alan? I said yes. If it's independent, whatever it comes out, that's so be it. Now, since you did that at the Greg Graham's testimony, the county engineer last time, you weren't here, Mr. Chapman, but he testified that he did the modeling. The only thing he did in the modeling was determine if the interior floods the exterior. He also testified in there to the BCC that he thought that the only reason they hired Dr. Harper was determining that there was a flooding issue, and there wasn't a flooding issue because we had 200 years of events. Well, I've got notices from the mosquito control that maybe water didn't come in the house. I don't know what his definition is, but they told me I ought to put fish in my front yard to deal with it, and that's since the improvements. So since he ran that modeling, and you don't have as-built, and you don't have a survey, so it makes me question, where did you get the data that you ran your model with in 2008? Since if you did get the data from 2007, since that time you've built over 300 homes and undertaken 3 major projects in there. And I really have a really hard time of why you don't want to know, because this issue is not just about flooding, it's about water quality standards to an adopted ordinance. You've adopted it, and your engineer testified that he believes that he's reviewing it to a better standard than what you've adopted. That worries me, that he doesn't review it to the adopted legal standards and instead what he thinks is best. Best for who? You also said there was a cost-benefit analysis. Does that mean the cost of the county or the benefit of dumping untreated water in the bay? He said he was adding a water box. I believe it's 9 foot, roughly 9 foot, like a large septic tank. Do any of you guys believe that 3 miles of road will be treated by a water box? That that's sufficient? You just spent $22,000 to recover signs and had more discussion than you'll have with me about the water quality of 400 acres running off into the bay. You don't have an as-built survey to back your engineer. You don't have geotech data in there that you're willing to provide us, and you said you did in the special master briefing. In fact, the only reason you have them for the interiors, I reported it to the DEP, and they made you 8 years ago. Let's do the right thing. Don't you want to know the cumulative effects of water pollution over time? It will cost $100 to every dollar you could spend in prevention. $1 in prevention will cost you $100 in correction, and we've learned that from oil spills and all that kind of thing. We cannot fix this after it's ruined in 50 years and we have a bay water problem. Get the data, don't buy an empty survey, and do the right thing. You need the data.
Wrap it up, Mr. Osborne. Thank you. Anyone else? Sid, you got any comment?
No, sir.
Okay. We had a motion to approve and a second. Okay, Bill?
Bill Fletcher, Fletcher. I'm just going to kind of repeat what I said the last time we had this discussion. You guys have spent a lot of years on this problem, and I see an opportunity to finally put it to bed. It goes back, 15 years? Many of you up there have dealt with this thing for that long. When I look at the $17,000, I look through some of these records and the monies you've spent over the years, the lawsuits that you've got, and the lawsuit that I think you'll get if you don't have this survey done to make this report accurate, is going to cost you a lot of money. I'd like to get a slide of the attachment A that talks about I don't know that I can read that. Drop down to the first paragraph. Can you guys read that?
Yeah.
I can't. But in this paragraph, staff is actually telling you that you're declining the request to spend the money, and then you look on down the last sentence there, and you're not going to have accurate report when you finalize it. I mean, why in the world would you do that if you're going to not have an accurate report? And again, the amount of money you spend is just minuscule when you look at what you spent over the years and what I think you're going to add to those costs in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Harris?
I guess I just can't figure out.
State your name for the record, please.
Sorry, Suzanne Harris. SUZANNEHARRIS. I can't figure out what y'all are afraid of. You just sat here and said you just settled some case, a lawsuit, bragging. It only cost us $10,000. That's all we had to pay. The insurance company's paying the other for $87,000. You spent $10,000. No telling how much y'all have spent in lawsuits. What are you afraid of that you're going to find out? I'm really willing to pay for this survey myself, just like I said last time. And if I do, and it comes back that this won't work, y'all are going to be embarrassed. Why not bite the bullet, get this thing put to bed one time and for all, and not end up back in more lawsuits? You want to raise the taxes to pay for the roads? You could have probably paid every road in Walton County for what y'all have given away in settlements with lawsuits. Another thing I have to say is, thank God somebody with some sense is running for county commissioner, and thank you, Bill Fletcher.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, close the public comment. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve it. Any further discussion from the board?
So the motion is to approve it without the survey.
to have him finish his contract as it was originally written. That's what the thing is. I've had some misgivings about this thing. One was the fact that he could come in here at basically the 11th hour and wanted to change his scope of work. And then on the other hand, I don't like that. I prefer if you're going to have a contract, live up to your obligations and scope of work, get it completed, and we'll look at something else. Let me finish, please. But in this particular case, 17,000, if that will get it to where what is being done out there is going to be sufficient to handle the problem and do away with the problem and hopefully end the lawsuits from everybody that lives out in Driftwood. Now, I see, Alan, you're shaking your head. That would do it. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not adverse at this stage to spend the additional 17,000 to at least have them go out there and do what they're doing, to work with our engineers to make sure that what future work is, I know it's in your district, Ms. Sarah, to make sure that whatever they're going to put in there is going to be adequate to address the problem. That's
My only problem is this guy's been 3 years late
Yeah.
in getting his thing together. I'm not opposed to doing a survey, but, you know, he's dilly-dallying around with this and refused to answer many requests from our county attorney to at least communicate with us. But I'll say this, I'm not opposed to spending the $17,000. Let's get this off the table. I'll amend my motion, or I'll withdraw my motion and make a motion that we spend the $17,000 to get this over with.
So, and just to be clear, the original proposal that Dr. Harper provided, the proposal he provided to us at the previous meeting.
No, not that one, because he miscalculated the money.
That's true. So we're just adding in the
Instead of
17.
30-something thousand, it was 22,000.
That's right.
So let's make sure that his figures are correct.
That's
But
right.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and spend the $17,000 to get it over with.
For the survey work, okay.
And I'll amend my motion to.
okay, so we have a motion and amended, we withdrew.
Withdrew, and I'm making a new motion.
Okay, and you second that, Ms.
Yes, I
Jones?
will.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries. All right, next up was me, but I don't have anything at this time.
Would you call a meeting to order, sir?
Do what?
Yeah, Commissioner Anderson has,
Yeah, I know, I'm getting to it.
I'm sorry.
I'm just going through the,
Gotcha.
I probably jumped ahead of him, but anyway. Commissioner Anderson, I believe you have something.
After talking with, and I thought he would be here tonight, our traffic engineer, Chance Powell, we're doing some work in the Driftwood and Ellis Road on the west end of the county. After talking with him, there's a chance we may make those roads one-way. Also, there's going to be 6 lanes of traffic plus a turn lane there. We have a new parking facility at the end of Driftwood. And after talking with Chance, I feel like, Chance, would you like to explain what we do?
Yes, this is the intersection of Driftwood and 98 and the property at the Golf Garden. There's a development plan coming forward that would like to consider a connection from Walton Way to 98, which would help support a traffic signal at that location. And that would greatly change our plans on what we're going to do at Driftwood and Ellis for the stormwater roadway improvements there. I guess what they've asked is that we've been seeking a signal at this location for quite some time, and the developer will have to appear before DOT variance committee for that signal to be considered, and it would we feel like it'd be beneficial if they went to that variance board with a letter of support from the board.
Okay, that's a motion.
That's a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Commander, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Ms. Nipper?
No, sir.
Ms. Jones?
Yes, I do. We have 2 vacancies on the Triumph Board. Danny Lucas from the City of Defuniak, and Dennis Sherwood from the college, and Bill Williams has reached out to both government official or government entities and the college to see if, the government entity and the college to see if they would give us a replacement, and we'll be bringing those forth in the next meeting. And then I noticed on our consent agenda that we're doing engineering on Bay Grove Park for a wall. When we get to the point of the engineering for the boat slips, and I want us to make sure that we're allowing for handicapped people to be able to get in a boat. That's been brought up to me several times recently, and just make sure that we have ample engineering or ample ways for those handicapped people to get in a boat and go fishing. So
Okay.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Let me add to that just a moment. In discussions with Commissioner Jones about some landscaping, and I'm sure they can hear me in the back, but with the board's permission, we'd like to reach out to DOT and look at what landscaping in the DOT right-of-way we may be able to incorporate in that greater plan for the park. So there is one section of median that to the north that we may be able to do some improvements in if it's nothing but a small area. But with your permission, we'd like to add that in a limited way to the scope of that work in the park, so it will either extend across or perhaps a little further north. So when we get to the landscaping component, with your permission, we would ask to be able to include that as well.
Right. Do you need a motion?
I don't think so. I think, you're going to have to approve it at the time. So if you're okay, we'll just take a look at that.
Yeah, and
I actually saw DOT's truck in the park when I came down here today.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the area right from the bridge to the red light, basically. I
Yes,
thought
yeah.
it was in the scope of work, and
Right.
somehow it got left out. So,
Okay. All right.
thank you.
You got direction? Mr.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tony, you done carried your, take care of yours? All right. All right, citizens' request. Richard Laverne, are you here, sir? Request to place on the ballot a vote for a fishing pier in South Walton.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Richard Laverne. I'm requesting a Walton County Ocean Fishing Pier using tourist development monies, not general county fund monies. This vote would establish means of providing ocean fishing for Walton County residences and visitors who cannot afford ocean charter boat fishing. This pier would have charter boat fishing docking facilities in addition to handicapped access. A yes vote for this referendum would allow the work to proceed within 1 month of the referendum approval as follows. The Board of Commissioners, TDC, organizes a committee, establishes a budget with TDC monies, and then have periodic public reports to follow. And I was enlightened with this brochure. You talk about everything that the tourists do here except fishing. The only place you mention it is in the back. June, Blue Martin Classic. October, 38 Blue Crab Festival. And at the bottom, community support South Walton Artificial Reefs Association. And why put in the artificial reefs if the visitors coming to Walton County can't get to them? So anyway, what I'm requesting is you guys vote to put this on a referendum. Let the citizens decide if they want a fishing pier or not. And if they say no, I have no further comment. But if they say yes, then let's work to get something going. But let the citizens decide.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, and I've heard multiple requests for a fishing pier. However, our county parks and access points are not large enough to support even the parking for a possibility of a pier. So the only place that's available is in one of the state parks. Grayton was thrown out at one time. But we have heard from the other folks that live down there around Grayton or use Grayton, they don't want that pier in there. And there's another option that has, not an option, but another thing has to be considered. We don't regulate the state parks. They have their own management plan that's normally 10 years in advance. and they've approved their 10-year plan for whatever they're going to do within the parks. And to get them to change it or even agree to have it there is going to be an uphill battle. I'm just telling you up front, whether the people want it or not, there's a whole lot of things that will have to factor into this, and a lot of people that's going to have to buy into it at the state level to have it happen.
Well, let's find out the will of the people, see what they want. It's
Well,
then
I
find out the
understand
will of
that.
the people.
I'm sure the will of the people is that they would like to have it. However, where are you going to put it? What's it going to cost? And how long is it going to get done? Part of your referendum language here is that within 1 month, we would start doing this. Well, you can't tie this board down.
You put a commission together to start investigating all these issues and problems, and at least do something. If the will of the people that wants a pier, just find out how far they can go, or if they can't go.
Okay, well, I mean, that's an option available, just to do a fact finding and see if there's any will of the entities, the state, to allow that to even take place.
But after the vote's taken, then you get your real facts.
No, we're going to do it before we put it on the ballot. We need to know before we go through that, all that we have to go through to get it as a ballot language.
In the past,
Could we do something like a survey? I mean, I know it's this, I know that's not what you're asking for, but a survey might give us a better idea of what the will of the people is as well, while we're simultaneously checking with the state, seeing how hard it would be to get in the 10-year plan.
I think it'd be very easy to put a survey on the county website and perhaps TDC site.
How would you feel, Mr. Laverne, about a survey? Would that, would that be a considerable,
I paid for a
first
survey in the
step?
newspapers, and it didn't get very good response. But the response that did come, over 82% of the people that responded to the survey in newspapers said they wanted a pier.
Oh, okay.
Well, we can direct staff to go ahead and put it on as far as a survey on the county website and on TDC, and then we'll go from there. All right? Mr. Osborne?
Yeah, for the record, Alan Osborne. First, thank you for that vote. I believe it was the right decision. I appreciate it. I think it's the wrong idea to even think about the state parks. Like Mr. Chapman says, there's a million tripping points to go through to get to that. And I disagree. I agree with the fishing pier. I disagree with having charter boat fishing on it. We've already regulated that, and we have enough, and they have their own clientele. They don't want to be around that pier, in my imagination. There's a lot of, that's failed everywhere else. This is pier fishing, you have kayak fishing, and you have charter fishing. So you ought to have some reefs where the kayakers can go to without the pier people throwing leads on top of their head. You need reefs built around the pier. You need a place for the charter guys, because that's a different clientele. They can afford to go fishing. I think we have a pretty good handle on charter fishing, but this is a tourism thing. And I think you stay away from the state parks, because you know what a powder keg that is to mess with the state parks around here with a road or anything else. What you do is you don't build a new TDC tourist facility right off. You take that money and go buy some land. Maybe not the pier itself. I'm not saying pay for the pier. You can put that on referendum. There's lots of ways to pay for a pier. But you buy the land, you buy some non-beachfront land to put the pier access on, and you buy some non-beachfront land like y'all spent millions of dollars on before for the parking. But as a fisherman, and having been a poor fisherman when I first left high school and couldn't afford a boat, I would like to have a pier to fish on if I'm a fisherman. And I think by the economic development factors that you put up here every day, besides the tourists, the people who live here deserve a quality of life to access those reef programs that you're building there. They're not just for the tourists, they're for the people who live here too. And so I think it's important for you to offer them a way to enjoy that recreation, and you have the wonderful economic factor of a TDC to help you put that land purchase together. You're right, Mr. Chapman. Stay away from state parks. That's a powder keg. Stay away from state land. It's just like right-of-ways. But when you have the ability to purchase your own land and bring to referendum a fishing pier, you can decide how to finance it. You can do it at MSBU, or there'll be a bunch of legal options. I'm not going to say I've researched them. I haven't. But the bottom line is they provide not only a tourism driver, but they provide a quality of life and an affordable means of good recreation that's not drinking, it's not partying for kids. What about all the kids in South Walton who would like to be fishermen whose dads don't own boats? Would you rather them, if they can't play baseball, we know we're shortage of things for kids to do. Fishing and beach is a great thing for kids. So we struggle with ball fields, we struggle with recreational areas. Let's not wait for 10 years ago. We wish we'd have taken some TDC money and bought more beach property. I promise you, there's miles and miles of 331 property to buy. Let's buy some beach and let's build a pier.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Bowman?
Coy Bowman, B-O-W-M-A-N. First, I'd like to point out that anybody can go to the beach and fish right off the beach. Secondly, there's not going to be any more of these artificial reefs because they're dangerous for the turtles. And it's really not about the want of the people. It's about protecting an endangered species, the sea turtles. They don't want a fishing pier. They don't want anything in the water. And if we build a fishing pier, it's going to kill turtles. Secondly, even if you buy a little piece of land and the land behind it, the fishing pier affects everybody, not just that one little house lot that you buy. Nobody wants to look at it. Second, and then it's bad for teenagers because they end up getting drunk and falling off of it. Speaking of getting drunk on things on the beach, that lifeguard stand that you've put out there on Grayton, 3 times now I've seen drunk tourists passed out on that thing. That thing's dangerous and needs to be removed. It's also dangerous for the turtles. So, like, it's not just about where one guy wants to fish. There are plenty of places to fish. The fishing is abundant around here. A pier is a bad idea. It's dangerous for everybody. It's dangerous for the wildlife. It's dangerous for human beings. And it's ugly. Nobody wants to look at it. It'll affect the tides and the sand and all of these other things that people come here for. People come here for the nothing. They don't want to come here and see stuff in the water. That's why we don't have oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico, is because we don't want to look at them. Nobody wants to look at a pier. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Frank Day, D-A-Y. I would like to look at a fishing pier off of our beaches. Thank you very much.
All right. Anyone else? Seeing none?
Could I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
We are having, the TDC is actually actively looking for accesses for parking. Could we just open it up and maybe give him direction to just investigate if there's property that we could investigate for a pier down the road? I'm not saying we're going to buy it now. We have other needs. We have, lots of needs that might come before a pier, but if we don't look, we won't ever know. So could we just I'd like to give him direction to start looking.
I think we already have given them direction.
To look for pier land?
Yeah, just to look into this thing, and that would include that.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm always looking for beachfront property and parking properties. So I have several that I've been considering, but dollars are something that we need to consider.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about pieces of property costing millions of dollars, do we want that to go towards beach access, or do we want that to go to a fishing pier? And that's just something that we need to ask ourselves, and we need to prioritize where we want those funds to go. So, if there's a piece of property that, comes forward, I can certainly bring it before the board. But I will just say, I think we're going to have some challenges in moving a fishing pier forward. I mean, we have challenges trying to develop a beach access. And so I think we're going to have serious challenges when we try to put a fishing pier out into the Gulf of Mexico. So if that's where we want the conversation to go, I'm certainly willing to look into it for the board and bring suggestions back. But I'll just say that I think wherever we decide to put a fishing pier, if we decide, it's just going to be a challenge. And we just need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, it was quite a challenge to get the bridge 4-laned. It took
Yeah.
us 30 years.
Yeah.
So, we can look for the future.
I agree.
That's all
I
I'm
agree.
saying. Okay, thank
I
you.
agree.
All right, thank you. I think you got direction on what to look at. All right, the next one up under citizens' request is Lisa McKinley.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Lisa McKinley. I come before you representing Golf Place Retreat homeowners.
Could you move a little closer to the mic, please?
Yes.
You're hard to understand.
I'm here representing Golf Place Retreat homeowners. It's a 10-home subdivision in South Walton. We would like to request that the county take over Micken Lane in our subdivision. You should have an attachment, which is the petition with 80% of the signatures and a site plan.
Well, Ms. McKinley, like we normally do, when we have these requests, we ask Public Works to go out and do their normal assessment and then report back to the board.
Okay.
Okay? So, Buddy, are you out there?
Yeah.
Buddy will be probably contacting you and also begin the assessment process and report it back to the board.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next up is Charles Surratt. Okay.
Charles Shaddy, and I'm here just to request that the, accept Topside Drive and Grayling Way in the Waterview at Inlet Beach neighborhood for county maintenance. We're
Okay.
just a small community. The development is finished, so there's no other development going on there.
Have you polled your residents? right
Yes, we
there?
send in the,
Yeah, we don't have it here. I'm sure
Oh.
somebody's got it, Public Works.
we did the survey and sent it in with our paperwork.
All right, well, just like the last lady, we'll direct Public Works to go out and do their assessment and report back to the board.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. We got public comments. Any public comments? It can be about anything, including your cat. Ms. Harris, come on.
I just want to clarify something that was said earlier. When I came last year and talked about background checks for beach vendors, it was not at a BCC meeting. Y'all had 2 public hearings on beach ordinances. And that's when I brought up that one of our beach vendors had been arrested for drugs and another beach vendor had beat up a tourist who's engaged to someone who lives here. And that I thought it was very important because that's the face of what all these tourists that bring all this money here, these beaches are what they come for. And when they go to what they consider a public beach access, they expect to be safe and that no beach guard's going to beat them up, and they expect not to have drug dealing on the beach. And so I don't want every vendor here. You have wedding vendors, people like Edgewater. Our vendors are all drug tested because they work for me. So everybody sets up a drug tray at Edgewater's drug tested themselves. But you can't do that for yours. But you shouldn't have to drug test the people that do beach weddings. You shouldn't have to drug test the caterer that's going to bring the beach wedding down. And I'm not saying drug test the beach vendors. I'm saying if you come to rent chairs and set up on the beach, then we should run a background check on them because they are the face of Walton County and they are the ones. We cannot have beach vendors dealing drugs. So to make my point even stronger, I had intended to bring this up before. Over spring break, I sent 4 different people to different places to try to buy drugs from beach vendors. And not one of 4 was unsuccessful in buying the drugs. Now that's a scary thought in Walton County. We can't have that. Do I think a business should be background checked? No. But I think you have got to come up with the way that it's not known down here. And when I hear it from friends of mine that own houses at Seaside, that their kids are buying drugs off the beach, and I prove it by testing it. Now, I'm always willing to put my money where my mouth is, and I would have paid for that survey, and Dr. Harper knew I'd pay. And I'm just telling you, I have tested this. I have even gone so far as to find one person who had more money in cash than any of y'all will ever have. And I have sent a lot of information to the DEA in Panama City. We can't have this, and I hope y'all will figure a way to try to keep our beaches safe.
Can I ask you one question, Mrs. Harris?
You certainly
You said
may.
you sent 4 people out,
I
and
did.
they all bought drugs,
Everyone.
okay? Did you contact the sheriff's department?
No, I did not.
You know that's
Okay.
illegal?
Nope.
It is.
Well,
Dealing is, it's dealing in narcotics.
I didn't deal. I
know,
just sent
but
them out
you
to see
sent
if
them
they
out
could.
there probably with money to see if they could buy.
Nope, sent them out with their own
Either way,
money.
I would caution you not to do that anymore.
I would caution y'all to make the vendors out here so that you don't go to your car and buy pills. And I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm talking about hard narcotics.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Ms. Bowman?
Melanie Nipper, do you think that if Mike
No,
Tyson...
no.
Oh, I'm
You
sorry.
direct it
Coy
to me.
Bowman, B-O-W-M-A-N.
You direct your questions to me.
Oh, Bill Chapman.
Not
Do
to
you-
her.
Okay, do you think that if Mike Tyson was punching you in the heart with a taser, you could stay quiet about it?
What's that
Okay.
have to do with anything?
It has to do with the fact that you removed me from the meeting last time because of an involuntary noise my body makes, okay? You cannot do this any more than you could remove somebody for sneezing or coughing, okay? Do you really think that I want to be a grunting, canary singing person? I lost my job because of this. It is an involuntary reaction that I have because really, the only special condition I have is that I'm too American, because Indians are more sensitive than Europeans. It is unfortunate that God made Europeans with such thick skin and such dull nerves that you can't feel it when somebody is killing you, but I can. Okay, so now what do you think? Do you think somebody's chasing me around town with some sort of magic zapper that makes me sing like a supersonic canary? Or do you think it's the military's like new sound weapon that's like, why? I'm just a little person. Why go through such great efforts to make me look a fool? You know, I'm a nobody, a peasant. I mean, unless of course it is true that I'm now the legal owner of $1.5 billion worth of Florida land. And then there's another possibility. Oh God, you guys make me so upset. Okay, for your information, I know that this is not coming from my own body. It is too late for you to blame it on me because your water department already admitted that they put a well point system in the forest exactly where I said this crazy vibration was coming from. And I know that that is exactly what St. Joe wanted, was to just blame it on the person. And that is why it was so important to get the Indians out of Florida, because they are the only breed of man who can actually voice a microwave. Do you think that it is right or fair or just, or in any way the American way, that I should have to suffer the effects of electrocution so that your cell phone can work better, or so that your water company can mine for gold while it puts a pipe in the ground, or so that the state of Florida can literally sell the state of Florida? Okay? I am not the only person that is affected by this technology. I have multiple friends who can feel it in their teeth and their ears the same way that I do. Do you think that this is the American way? That I should have to suffer so that somebody else can advance themselves monetarily? So that you can take the land out from under our feet? Of course you're not going to say anything. Okay, well, I was wrong about one thing. Y'all aren't going to jail for tax evasion. You're going to Guantanamo for human rights violations. Thank you. Good night.
There's a gentleman, a nice gentleman with a blue shirt that would
Yes,
like to
sir.
speak. Can you follow that act, sir?
Yeah, I'm Steve McBroom. I missed which sign we decided on.
It's the first one in the book.
It's A1.
A1, I think it was. There it is right there.
Okay. I have a lot of people that'll be asking me about this. I appreciate y'all.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
I appreciate your time. As you can see, everybody in this room is very passionate about Walton County, myself included, and I just think it's a great place to live. And one thing I just wanted to kind of share, I live in the East Point, Washington area.
Sir, would you state
Yes.
your name and
It's
spell it for?
Terry Franksman, T-A-R-E-Y-F-R-A-N-X-M-A-N. And what I just wanted to share is Walton County is exploding with growth, and it's just really, I think, a wonderful place to live. And I've just seen so much change coming on lately. And what has happened in my neighborhood, I've had 3 individuals purchase lots next to me and basically just clear cut everything off of their property. And kind of as we started out today, and you can even see the sign above you guys, the core values that talks about pride, preservation, conservation. And what I'm just noticing is just, it's a shame to see it happen. People come to Walton County because of what we have to offer. It's the beaches, it's the environment, it's the trees. And I just wanted to kind of share some information. If there's anything that can be done to kind of limit 100-year oak trees just being decimated and clear cut throughout the property. And I'm not the big tree hugger kind of guy, but I just wanted to kind of share some information to see if we can possibly work with code, work with planning, just to kind of preserve what we have. That's the reason I moved here. I think that's the reason everybody is living in Walton County, because of what it has to offer.
Sir, do you live within the Point Washington
Yes, sir,
neighborhood
I do.
plan? You do?
Yes.
There is regulations in there concerning tree cutting.
Okay.
All right? Now, planning, whenever they bring their plans in for their DO, will compare it. Mac is standing over there, he can
Great.
back me up on it, but they will look at it to see if it conforms to the neighborhood plan.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. My concern is I think they probably just cut it all out. They're gonna basically come back and say, okay, I cut all the trees out and I'm gonna put my house up. And there's a lot that can be done. You look at watercolors, you look back at East Point, Washington, there's a lot of stuff that can be done. It's just I'm seeing more and more of it. And the problem is if I go to code, I've got to rat out my neighbors and now they hate me. So it's a tough thing.
Tough.
It is. And given the fact, like everybody said here, you've got the trees, we've got the environment, we've got the water. I just thought I'd just share that with you. There's also some stuff in there I thought through the Studer Group out of Pensacola that just talks about what, we can do with the community, that we can really set our standards higher. So I just figured I'd spend a couple minutes and just share that with you guys, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Sir, just to let you know, I've been pretty vocal about a historic tree ordinance. I don't know if you,
I'm not, it's the first time.
First time you- okay, yeah, it's one of-
They cut it, not even
Yeah.
a leaf on the property, it's a shame, it
yeah,
really is.
and they call them heritage trees, just certain ones, just for certain reasons.
Spectacular, and it's just, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else, any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the legislative items, I believe it is. Mac?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 items tonight. Both are legislative. The first of which is the Bay Grove Park Small-Scale Amendment. This is a request to approve by ordinance. It's been reviewed by Kelly Frommeyer. It's a small-scale amendment submitted by Greg Graham on behalf of Walton County Public Works and the Board of County Commissioners. Requesting approval to amend the future land use category from rural village to public facilities on approximately 7.46 acres. Project's located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Bay Grove Road South and US 331, adjacent to US 331 and north of the Choctawhatchee Bay. It's identified by the parcel numbers in your package. And just for the benefit of the audience, this is the new county park location west of the north end of the bridge.
Okay.
Get my bearings right.
Yeah, it is. All right.
We've had no public comment in writing on this particular topic. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any
you might have.
questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion, second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
While I'm thinking about it, are we going to bring it to the board to name this park at some point?
At some point.
Okay, thank you.
It's a little early.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think the next one's Dune Allen Regional Beach Action.
Yes, sir. This is also a request to approve by ordinance. It's been reviewed by Bob Barante. This is a small-scale amendment application submitted by Walton County Board of County Commissioners requesting approval to change the adopted future land use of neighborhood infill to Parks and Recreation on approximately 1.22 acres. It's located at 5999 County Highway 30A and identified by the parcel numbers in your package. For the benefit of the rest of us, this is located immediately south of the Stinky's Restaurant on 30A.
Okay.
We've had no written public comment on this item either. We'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? What's the board's wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. That's our entire agenda this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Adjourned.